Hello everyone. I hope everyone is fine. Today we are going to see the next portion of how do organisms reproduce. So in the last session we have studied about the male reproductive system. In that case we have studied the different parts of the male reproductive system or the organ, how the sperms can be produced, mature and ejaculate from testes to the different reproductive glands. So we will see only the overview. How are the sperms produces? The sperms are produced in testes, then it will later transfer towards the epididymis. Next, it will be mature inside the epididymis, later transfer to the vas deferens. Is it? So from the vas deferens, the tube-like structure, it will get ejaculate through the seminal vesicles, which produces a viscous substance. With the help of that, it will be passed through the ejaculatory duct. Ejaculatory duct can move the sperm towards the prostate gland. Later from the prostate gland, it will pass through the urethra. So this was actually how the sperm can be transferred from one part to the another part. Next, now you have understood what are the different parts where from the sperms can produce and ejaculate. Now you have to study about the structure of the sperm, how actually a single sperm look like, or how it's consisting of different parts. So in the image below I have given, you can see it consisting of head, neck, middle piece, plasma membrane and the tail. So head is it's consisting of nucleus and acrosome. After the head, the just what can we say, the curve like shape, that is a neck. The middle piece and the head get connected by the neck. The middle piece is consisting of a mitochondria, and later from that region the tail starts, that is made up of plasma membrane, we know that. Then the tail, which is helpful for the motion or the movable. So here it is a tiny bodies with a long tail, mainly composed of genetic materials. Obviously, as I've said that the head is consisting of a nucleus, it means that it consisting of genetic materials in the form of chromatin materials and DNA and the genes. As like the other cells consisting the different organelles, but it consisting of only the mitochondria for the production of the energy or the release of energy. And the acrosome is one part which helps in the rupturing the egg cell. Whenever the fertilization going to be takes place, at that time these sperms can try to rupture the egg cell. At that time it will be helpful. The plasma membrane, you know that it is made up of lipoprotein, that is a glycoproteins, amino acids, lipids and the different polysaccharides. The tail is helpful whenever the sperm discharge inside the vagina of female. At that time they can move from vagina towards the upper region of the female reproductive part, that is a fallopian tube, that we are going to see in details. So this is helpful for the locomotion from one place to another place, from vagina to the fallopian tube. So this was about the structure of sperm and their different roles according to their parts. So now we will see the female reproductive system or the organ. As we have studied about the male reproductive system, the same we are going to see or the study about the female reproductive system. It is consisting of a pair of ovaries, fallopian tube, uterus, cervix, vagina. As we have learned in the male reproductive system, the testes are also in pairs. Here in the female also the ovaries are present in the pairs. Why, that we will see in details. Next, a pair of ovaries which is produces the egg cells or the genetic cells or the germ cells, that is ova or the ovum, that we know the gametes which produces by the female reproductive system known as ovum or the ova, that will released by the any of the two ovaries. Next, the fallopian tube, it holds the two ovaries with the help of finger like projections in the image. You can see this is actually the fallopian tube. Okay, it is holding the ovaries from both sides with the help of finger like projection, means finger like structure. Next, the uterus holds baby which look like a bag or the sack. Why? Because it will carry the baby till the 9 months. Next, the cervix, it opens into the vagina. You can see the vagina is the initial or the first part, is it, which is going to be open here. This is the uterine, or you can call it as uterus. Cervix, this one, it opens here. Next, so this was actually how the different parts consisting by the female reproductive system. So now we will see in details. A pair of ovaries, on one on each side of a uterus, is it. Next, it produces female sex cells. It secretes female hormones, that is estrogen and progesterone. These hormones helpful for the female reproductive system which is produced by themselves. Next, the fallopian tube, it exists in the pairs originating from the uterus extending up to each ovary. So you can see how it going to be extend from here. The fallopian tube going to be extend from here to the ovaries. Next is that it is receives the ovum from ovary. So how it receives the ovum from the ovary? Whenever the egg can be released from any of a single ovary, okay, at any single month, whenever the ovary can be released, whenever the ovum can be released from ovary, it can be held by this region, that is by the fallopian tube. That's why it's known as it receives the ovum from the ovary. The uterus, it is a pear shaped muscular halo structure. Fetus develops here. So what happens here? It is a pear shaped muscular halo structure. Why it is a muscular? Because it is consisting of lots of blood vessels. Because whenever the egg get fertilized with the sperm, at that time the sperm or the egg when fuse, they comes and sit here or attached to the uterine wall, or you can call as a uterine cavity. And that uterine cavity consisting of this much of layers of muscles, and that muscles is consisting of number of blood vessels which are helpful for the providing nutrition to the baby and exchanging any of the materials from the baby. So such a things exchanging and receiving takes place through the uterine wall or the uterus. That's why it's made up of a muscular tissues. Next, whenever next is that it holds the fetus till the development. So fetus development takes place here. How? As I have told you, it is stick to that wall, and that wall provides a nutrition. Then the fetus will be converted into the embryo. Then later it will convert into the baby. Next, the fetus means what? It is a immature embryo consisting of number of muscular layers on them. Later it becomes a baby. So this is actually about the how immature embryo convert into the fetus, then later fetus convert into the baby. Next, cervix means what? The cervix is a narrow lower part of the uterus. You can see the cervix is the narrow, as I told you, it ends inside the vagina. Is it? Next, vagina is a tube-like structure. It is a tube-like structure. This one portion. In the image you can see this is a tube-like structure, and the sperm discharge occurs here and act as a birth canal. So what it do? Why it is called as a birth canal? Because after the 9 months, or in the 9 months, or before the 9 months, the baby will take birth. Is it? So that will get released through the vagina only. That come out from the vagina only. That's why it known as a baby carry out, or you can also call it as a birth canal. So this was about the human female reproductive system, and this consisting of this type of different parts. Now you have got to know the structure of female reproductive system and different parts and what is their functions. Now we will see how the female gametes, or the you can call as a sex cells, produced from female reproductive system. How? So those we will see. The female sex cells are known as ovum or the ova. The ova are produced by the epithelium in ovaries. So see, the ova are produced by the epithelium in ovaries means the ovary is made up of the epithelial tissue. So in detail the structure is as I have shown you here. You can see this is made up of the epithelial tissue. It is consisting of number of ovums. Okay, those are actually immature, but at each month any one of them will become mature and get released. Okay, so such a process takes place at each month. You can see the 1 2 3 4 5 6 steps are there, is it? So likewise the ovaries releases a single ova or the ovum each month and passes through the fallopian tube. Getting? So this is actually happens at every 28 days. Next, it releases ovum from ovary. Ovulation. Every 28 days ovum releases. So this is happens at every 28 days. So immature type of eggs are present in the ovaries. When it reaches or becomes mature, at that time the female reaches at the adolescence, or we know that is also called as puberty. That is changes in body. The hormonal changes takes place at each month. So at that time the any single ovum can be released from any one of the ovary, but at a month both ovaries cannot work. Any one of them will be work or release the egg. So this process whole is called as a menstruation cycle. Getting? So this process is called as a menstruation cycle. At that time the menstruation cycle starts inside the female at every 28 days whenever the ovum releases. So see, egg starts maturing more, and every month any one of mature egg will be released from the ovary. That is a production how happens in the females. So see guys, so how the productions happens in the female. So every month any one of a immature will become a mature, okay, till it reaches to the 28 days and later it will be released out. So that whole process is also called as ovulation. The release of a ovum or the egg from the ovary in the form of a matured form, that is called as a ovulation process. which takes place at every 28 days. So this is takes place under the pituitary gland, which we know that what is the role of a pituitary gland. It has ability, or it is also called as a master gland, which secretes the or releases the sex hormones, that is the testosterone and progesterone. Is it? So this is takes place under the pituitary gland. The ovulation process happens at every 28 days. Next, now you have understood how male and female sex cells are produced. Now you have to learn how fertilization takes place, or mixing up of both male and female cells will be takes place. So these things we have to study under the fertilization process. I hope everyone have understood till the process how the cells can be produced from the male and the female. So now we are going to be start the main portion. Next, it is an internal process. It occurs in the fallopian tube. How that we will see in the next image. Next, the ovum comes from the ovary to the fallopian tube. Sperm enters to the vagina, reaches to the fallopian tube. Sperm enters inside the egg. It means the fusion of both sex cells takes place. Now see. In this image you can see the egg cells are present, the egg has released, is it, and three, you can see that just for your understanding, three sperms are shown here, is it. Any one of will be reached inside, later it will convert into the zygote. Then zygote will be goes to the different cell divisions that we will see in the result of fertilization, just for your understanding. So the released egg can be moved in the fallopian tube. Then whenever the sperm ejaculated inside the vagina, that will transfer towards the upper portion of the female reproductive part, that is the fallopian tube. So whenever the ovulation time comes, it will be get fused with the egg cells, and later it convert into the zygote. Next, it means that fusion of both sex cells takes place. Means here actually what happening, the fusion of nucleus of sperm and the ovum taking place to form a structure that is called as a zygote, and that whole process is called as a fertilization process. So in the image you can see here number of the sperms are there. Okay, number of sperms are there, but only single can be reached inside the nucleus of the sperm, then only the fertilization takes place. At a time only single sperm can be possible to fix or the fuse with a single egg. Near about 12 millions of sperms releases or produces in the male reproductive system at every month, but out of them 200 can be survive in the female reproductive system. Out of 200, only one or the single sperm can fuse with the female egg cell, then only the fertilization takes place. Then later it goes under the different cell divisions, later it convert into the fetus. That fetus will be become as a baby. This is the whole process which is takes place under the fertilization process. So now the lifespan of an egg is near about 12 hours. Within a 12 hours only, if any of the sperm can be able to fuse with that egg, then only the fertilization can be takes place, otherwise no any fertilization will be takes place. The 24 hours is there, only inside the one day only it can be possible. So this is about the fertilization. So next, the result of fertilization. The result means actually what happens after the fusion will be takes place, then what happens. If not takes place, those things we will study after or in the next session. The fertilization leads to the formulation of a single cell structure called as a zygote. As I have told you, the fusion of male and female sex cells fuse to form a one structure that is called as a zygote, and that whole process is called as a fertilization. But the main definition of a fertilization is that the fusion of nucleus of both sperm and the ovum takes place to form a one structure that is called as a zygote, and that whole process known as a fertilization process. Okay, that the, the zygote is actually a single cell. Okay, later it goes under different types of several cell divisions. So now what is meant by the cell division? You know that you have studied the cell division in the ninth standard. It is actually consisting of two stages, that is a mitotic division and the meiosis division. The mitotic division means what? It is actually the division of the cells which involves in the growth of the body, those cells which helps in the growth of the cell body. Okay, next, the meiosis divisions means what? That is actually takes place for the genetic materials cell division, means those cells which involves in the genetic material transfer. Okay, for example like egg or the sperm, in them only the meiosis division takes place till the baby can be take birth. So under the meiosis process the zygote will goes. Later it will convert into the 2 cell, 4 cell, 8 cell, 16 cell. Likewise number of cells will be formed and will get attached to the uterine wall or uterine cavity. This is actually the process, the baby or the fetus how can be produced from the zygote. Then later it become that is an embryo, then immature embryo will become a fetus, then fetus will convert into the baby, and that will reach to the uterine wall. Next, the zygote after many cell division implants into the embryo after many cell divisions known as a fetus. So don't be get confused how this actually the when the which term come, means the embryo will first come or the fetus will come first. So that's why you should not get confused. Zygote will be there first, then later the embryo will be become into 4 to 5 days after the division of the zygote. After their 4 to 5 days, then it will convert into the one that can be called fetus, then it will be become as a blastocyst. All these things are you will study in the higher classes, okay, in details. Just for your kind information, you have to just keep these things which comes under the result of fertilization. Next is that how that fetus get nutrition. So these things we will study in the next session. Till that you have to remember the things like a female reproductive system, what is their functions, and how the sex cells of the female reproductive system produces, and how the fertilization can be takes place. So these things we have learned and you have to remember. So for any doubts and difficulties, don't hesitate to ask me the questions. You can ask me anytime. Thank you.